Alright, so I finally got my copy of Operation Mind Control by Walter Bowart, and was looking through, I found a section that I found immediately very appealing to me just because of how kind of left field it is, and it's telling, it's revelatory, I'd say. Um, so let's begin. It's here on page 167 here. So we got Mark Phillips, the guy who co-wrote Transformation of America with Kathy O'Brien. He was allegedly her deprogrammer. Here we have him talking about when he first happened upon Project Monarch as he was hired by a government subcontractor and, was dealing with. He was hired into a sales and engineering department, that was working on developing this kind of technology. Didn't quite know what it was. So we'll start reading here from page 167. Then I saw sensory deprivation tanks, electric grid rooms, harmonics generators, chairs wired for shock and sound, special helmets now known as virtual reality helmets, which allow the wearer to see in 3 dimensions. Yeah, man, this is back in... See if I can find a year for reference. See exactly when this was. Project Monarch, according to Mark Phillips, is a U.S. Defense Department project begun in the 1960s. So we're probably looking at around then. 60s, 70s, that era. Well, if it started, yeah, then we're in the 60s here. Okay. I heard of formulas for mind-altering hypnotic drugs that made LSD look like aspirin. I believe it. I personally met scientists who were traveling the world, gathering seeds, leaves, roots, and herbs from such places as the jungles of Zimbabwe. They were even consulting witch doctors looking for drugs that could affect the human brain and make predictable zombies. Phillips said he talked to agents who studied with African witch doctors like Credo Vusilamuzu Mutwa. The stories of Tokoloshis they told Phillips matched this excerpt from Mutwa's story, My People, Writings of a Zulu Witch Doctor. And I actually tried to hunt that book down, and the cheapest I could find it was like $160, so yeah, I'm not dropping that. I mean, I'm blessed, I'm sitting pretty, but I'm not dropping that. But you can find some stuff online, and he's got something on, he's got some literature on reptilians. I mean, it's out there. I actually wanted to download that PDF and just print it all off as a packet. I mean, you can find some really crazy stuff out there. Just looking, even. I mean, if you know what you're looking for, the current algorithm's not going to dig it up for you. All right. So, and again, I kind of researched what a Tokoloshi was and all that, and there's all this urban legend nonsense around it, like, oh, it's a spooky Zulu spirit. Chills or like the TikTok people. This is very creepy. This, formless black spirit that sits at your bedside and it'll kill you through fear is like all that kind of stuff. But this is a direct illustration on how much stranger fact is than fiction. Fiction is only a mere distortion of fact, and usually a way of suppressing it. I mean, we see in predictive programming, that's a real thing. If you don't believe that's a real thing, then you're either misinformed or you're ignorant. Okay, moving on. A Tokoloshi is not a ghostly or supernatural phenomenon. He is a physical human being, and he operates along perfectly scientific lines. We were talking about African MK Ultra over here, and it's been going on for, I mean, recorded through the oral traditions of like these witch doctors, you know. So that speaks to the perennialism of all of this, of good and evil. The pervasiveness, I mean, it's reached across the globe in ways that, I mean, the modern man and his modern learning can't conceive of. But okay. Malundi had used a very small pygmy whose weight he had drastically reduced with a severe diet. He had furthermore turned the little creature into a zombie by a simple interference with his brain. A sharp awl can do the trick. He was posted up the marula tree and along a branch that reached across to the roof of Cambella's hut. With a long thong, he lightly descended upon the roof of the hut and wriggled his skeletal little frame through the grass roof. He escaped the same way. This weird practice has today been perfected into a fine art. Cases are known to me where wizards, and when he says wizards here, he's pretty much talking about sadistic drug dealers. You know how MK Ultra works. Have arranged the fake death of a particular person whom they have selected for a prospective zombie. The person is actually buried, but exhumed the same night and revived. He is then turned into a zombie and many days or weeks later heavily decorated with parts of other people's bodies. Also exhumed from graves. The puppet is induced to pay a particular victim an unexpected visit. The victim simply dies of fright. It is as simple as that. Any chance eyewitness will relate a beautiful Tokoloshi story to the police, and the police will dismiss it as so much nonsense. In later generations, the wizard perfected their art of Tokoloshi making, and they started breeding Tokoloshis from childhood. As recently as 1922, there was a secret Tokoloshi farm kept by a gang of wizards in the Drakensberg in Basutoland. I mean, gang of wizards, gang of drug dealers, right? I mean, this is Vusu Mazulu Credo Mutwa. Credo Vusu Mazulu Mutwa talking here. With the arrival of the white man and Christianity, the killing of children who were born cretins and idiots went out of fashion, and these grotesque specimens of humanity grew plentiful. But an idiot is something no one misses should it mysteriously disappear. The parents least of all. Jeez. And many of these idiots, particularly female, landed up in the hands of these wizards. They reared them, and when they were adult, they mated with them and kept them in dark caves for their children to be born. Kind of like intergenerational incest satanic family, you know. How many kids you think are born and they're not like recorded? They're just kept in these dirty, dark dens. God, who knows how deep and dark it goes, man. Like the Finder's Cult stuff where they source all these. Jeez. Gross. Often in Basutoland, the land of ritual murder, the babies were brought into the world the Caesarean way, with no concern over the life of the mother. Parts of her body were used for medicines that were administered to her own baby to make it grow up in an atmosphere of deep evil. It's definitely some pharmakeia going on there. The baby was reared by other idiot women who fed it a mixture of the milk of dogs, donkeys, and cows, and the blood of, I think this is supposed to be raves, and vultures. At the age of 6 months, it was subjected to specialized treatment for its particular task of the future. It was made to develop a crooked or hunchback by strapping it to a curved piece of wood. The legs, too, were strapped into attitudes that encouraged their growth into grotesque shapes. At the age of 12, the tongue was damaged to destroy speech. The child was taught to hate the world and idolize its wizard master. It was then put through a course of queer tricks. We're not talking about Pride Parade stuff here, though in a few years, who can tell? Tokoloshis at the Pride Parade. There'll just be another stripe on the flag. Ranging from tree climbing with its crooked limbs to burrowing underground, it was taught ways to commit murder and to remove all its tracks afterwards. I mean, we're talking African MK Ultra assassin stuff here, man. Literally wicked. Not colloquially wicked. I mean, this is literal evil. This is satanic. When it had reached the age of about 12, the wizard had in his hands a lean, featherweight, puppet-like creature. An unthinking robot that obeyed every command. Right? A creature worth 100 head of stolen cattle to the one who bred and trained him. Genuine Tokoloshis are today found only in Basuda land and Nyasa land, where hiding places in the mountains can still be found for them. Man, isn't that just very creepy? With the difficulties in breeding, rearing, and keeping this kind of Tokoloshi these days, the wizards have resorted to using baboons and monkeys. I mean, how terrifying is that? Still, I mean, the human is obviously worse, but you don't want this to happen to anything living, but man, like zombie monkeys, zombie, like, mind control monkey, she got drugged up. Their young are nowadays turned into the weirdest monstrosities and can be taught to do considerable damage to their master's enemies. There is currently a growing market for Tokoloshis in South Africa, as of 1969 when this excerpt was written. A trained monkey or baboon Tokoloshi fetches as much as 28 pounds. The Tokoloshi is no figment of the imagination. The word Tokoloshi means a great mysterious evil. The Bantu will never portray one in a carving. When a Bantu describes something as a Tokoloshi, he says a mysterious evil and means mind your own business. How satanic does that sound? Right? Like I said before, it just speaks to the perennialism, how pervasive. I mean, he's Lord of this world, right? Why wouldn't he be Lord of the Tokoloshis in Africa? You know? So, if you don't want to be left on that cliffhanger, go ahead, read on. I mean, talking about Project Monarch here, and yeah, it's a lot to take in. I mean, I wanted to really prepare something a little more in-depth, but I figured the best way to present this would just be to get you the story straight out of the book. I mean, maybe editorialize just a slight bit, but I think these words speak for themselves. And, who knows exactly, only God knows exactly how much is information and disinformation herein. I mean, all of this is people talking to each other, but it only makes sense. Those who advocate for the conspiratorial view of history will have to look deep and will have to sharpen their discernment